Okay, I'm going to give talk about. Forgive me, I have a cold, but I can do this still. A little background on my own swing development and why I have developed certain ideas about how you might teach golf. At least one option. So, I had, like many people, I had a typical swing which had all the typical flaws. I would say 95% of golfers start out with some very typical flaws. And I think the reason is when you look at a golf swing, you see that it goes back this way, comes back down on this plane, and moves through that way. Then you get the idea that, well, if it's moving that way, I must have to apply force this way to go back at this angle that I'm seeing, and then I have to hit the ball. So you get two flaws right away, which is you're applying force in the wrong direction first, which is this way. So the force in the background is at directly along the, I don't know what that term is, the tangent of the arc, basically. So if my arc is moving horizontally through the ball right down here, my initial force has to be straight backwards. It's the limited extension of my arm that makes it move around in a circle, right? So I'm here, throw the club straight back that way, moves around in a circle, comes back. So I had a swing, which was the typical swing that everybody has, is way too long, throw the club at the ball, right? And so I tried to then fix that swing, which I had sort of, I played as a kid a bit. It was a pretty ingrained pattern. And any swing that you have, if you've spent enough time on it, and particularly if it started more when you were young, is going to be an ingrained pattern. And so I tried to make it shorter. I tried to somehow get a better shaft position going through the ball. None of it actually did very much. I maybe got better at managing my swing, but I didn't really develop a better swing. It was just a managed version of really kind of still the same swing, and if I were to take time off, it would want to go back to the original form, because that is the nature of motor learning. So motor learning, your body creates a motor pattern. In your brain, it's called myelination. That motor pattern becomes reinforced, more efficient, more automatic, right? And it never goes away. That's the important thing to remember, is it never goes away. So you can do some conscious things to try to alter it, but it doesn't really go away. It just sits there and fights you the whole time. So then, without thinking about without sort of recognizing that reality, I just had an idea. I always liked Mo Norman. I thought, what if I learned Mo Norman's swing? So different approach, right? I'm no longer fixing my swing. I'm just gonna do this completely different swing. And indeed, I'll see if I can do a good version, because I don't really do it anymore, but here was my Mo Norman swing. That's pretty much it. And I was able to do that. And it was radically different, right? Radically different. Which you would think, it's gotta be harder to do a radically different swing than a slightly different swing. But in fact, it's not. And the reason it's not is I no longer was falling into the groove that I had created. So I was no longer falling into my old motor pattern. I had found a way to just create a new motor pattern entirely. One thing I will say about Mo Norman's swing, his description, as odd as it seems and physically impossible, of never taking the club off the ground and then going through without the face rotating, if you tried to do that, you pretty much have his swing. If you take that intention, which is really a description of force, two things, description of force, so no lifting, just rotate back and the club comes up because your body stops. So you rotate back, the club comes up to plane, and then you go through, and then the thing he did was rotate this way, which holds that squareness of the face. So it's a rotate back, and then you hold that face kind of square. So that's basically it. But then so I did that for a while to some success, but mostly what it made me realize is, oh, I can actually do something really different. Like, that's actually almost easier. Then I arrived at an idea, well, it'd be more interesting to just, two things. I realized it's easy to get then caught up in focusing on what your body is doing. And that's not really what golf is about. What golf is really about, and here's a Jack Nicklaus quote for you, is they asked him, how do you putt, Jack? And he said, well, I putt just like I do everything else. I respond to the swinging of the club head, which is, this has a nature and I'm responsive to it. Everything. Not just putting, all his shots. He's responding to this. He's not applying his idea to the club head. He's tuning in to its inherent nature and responding to it. So I got the idea, well, what would that be? And I thought, well, it's basically this, right? Can I respond to this action right here? So, yes, I can, right? I'm not swinging. I'm not deliberately creating the timing. I'm just responsive to the timing. So now, can I just be responsive to that timing? So I'm taking all intention to hit out of the swing. So that was my next idea. So, and from there, then sometimes successful, sometimes not. But what I realized is the more I'm just responding to this with just an intention to let this do its job, move through, no hit, nothing harsh, just responding to its falling, I'm turning with it, toss it back, falling, I'm turning with it. I can actually now build a swing that is entirely out of responsiveness to this feeling. And so that's where I came up with, and that's hard to feel. And it's hard especially for an adult to feel because it's not that heavy and it's very easy, and your body wants to do the version that makes sense to your body, and whatever you think you should be doing, your body kind of has its own ideas. And so you think about it, all the great golf swings were built by small children mostly. Like the fundamental motions were built by children, which was, they were weak relative to this tool. They didn't have a capacity to manipulate it. They had a capacity to use their whole body. So they did that, and then they figured out how to take that athletic movement and make all the adjustments that made that land in the right place. So the purpose of this, and even more so the big one, is now this replicates kind of what it's like to be 5 years old, because now, especially with the bigger one that's heavier, your instinctive response to this is to use your body to move it, right? And that's what creates a good golf swing. So that's why this tool works. It's telling you instinctively, well, three things really. Instinctively, you create the plane through force, right? So I'm not manufacturing this plane idea that has to go. It just happens naturally. Just heave it back, finds its plane. My body responds and shifts forward if I put enough force, and then I just rotate through with it. So all those things happen because the tool tells you to do them. And then what you have to then learn to do is tune in to the more subtle feeling of not just this tool and what its timing is, but also now your arms become part of the thing that you're swinging. So you're not swinging this with your arms. You feel then the weight of your arms. You create a structured unit, so it needs some structure. It needs a proper grip. The function of the grip is to hold onto the club and create a lever that works properly. So it's a lot of detail to that, which I'm not going to go into right now, but you need to get the grip in your fingers. You need to do certain things so that once you put your hands on there, The purpose of your hands then, now you equipped it. Now all your hands have to do is tell you what's happening here, right? So you can't give your hands two jobs. You can't give your hands the job of feeling where this is and directing it at the same time. That's too complicated. They just need to feel where it is, feel that the mass is dropping, tell your body when to move through. So the whole swing to my mind is create a perfect structure, or as close as you can. Figure out where to stand. If you top the ball, maybe you're standing too far away. So once you create a structure and a physical motion, then you never do anything that messes up that motion, right? As soon as you start messing up the motion, you've abandoned the fundamental element that's creating the swing, which is this physical shifting and turning motion. So you have to leave that alone. And once you decide I'm going to leave that alone, I'm not going to change my motion to fix something. I'm not going to stall to fix the face. Then you start figuring out, how do I create this mechanism and my position to make all those elements work together, and then toss it up, turn as it drops. Basically that's it. So tune into the dropping, and you rotate. Rotation brings the club into the area you want to do. So if you can simplify things down, solid structure, put enough energy into the swing that you responsively move back and then rotate through, you can create something reliable. And then once you have that reliable thing, then you can start making small modifications that creates more of a fade, more of a draw, move the ball forward a little, move it back. It's a lot of little changes, change the orientation of the club in your hands if you're hitting a shot out of the sand, say. So you change all those little elements on top of an unchanging foundation, which is the fluid motion of your swing. So the reason most people have gone awry is they basically probably started with something of a fluid motion, and then they made the wrong adjustment, which is they adjusted the motion instead of adjusting the other elements. So that's why I say, here's my basic philosophy about how to learn a golf swing is, first of all, don't fix your swing. Your swing is going to be what it is. It's much easier actually to build a new swing entirely from scratch. Not only much easier, maybe the only possible thing you can do. It's really, I would say it's virtually impossible, except to some degree, to take a swing that might be designed for killing rattlesnakes and then turn that into a good golf swing. It's like, why would you start with some strange motion like that and try to turn into something? Why not just create in a small way a proper motion and build it up into something new? So that's my philosophy, and that's why I don't try to fix anything. I just think create your own something small from the inside with your own senses. Your own senses are 100 times better than anything I could see from the outside. You have to feel it. You have to use your sense of where the thing is in space. Timing is so minute, right? So if I say we need to do this, like when? What? Oh no, you have to do that 1/100th of a second earlier, then it'll work. It's like you can't. Nobody can tell you how to use your body. It's running way too fast. It's much more clever than the conscious mind. So trust your body. Get a feeling of tossing it back. Tune into gravity. Turn through the thing. Work small until you can do it. Work small till you can move through without interrupting anything. And then you sort of build up from that. And then as soon as you feel yourself interrupting again and imposing your ideas and focusing on your knee and all those things, you're like, good, now just go back, find your little motion, move it through the ball, and then you'll find that you can actually make a swing entirely from scratch and do something really radically different that will also be so much more pleasant, because now you're attuned to your own body and gravity and everything around you, which is a better life experience anyway.